you have to make sense of this problem. So you have this function h equals negative 16t squared plus 20. Put it in your graphing calculator and you're going to see a parabola that opens downward. Now, when you look at the vertex, the highest point on the parabola, that is at the point 0, 20. As time goes on, the height of the parabola, or the height of the pine cone, goes down, down, down until it finally hits the ground and it stops right there. So what we have is, we're looking for this point. Now, normally when you have a point on graph paper, you call it x comma y. But instead of using x and y, they're using time for x and height for y. So we have t comma h. We are looking for the time when our height is equal to 0. They gave us this formula, h equals negative 16t squared plus 20. We are looking for the t when h equals 0. So I substituted h with a 0. Now we have to solve for t. So I subtract 20 from both sides of the equation and we get negative 20 equals negative 16t squared. Since both sides of the equal sign have terms with negative signs, let's divide by -1 and make it positive. So we have 20 equals 16t squared. We want to isolate the t, so we're going to divide out the 16. So now we have 20 over 16 equals t squared. To get rid of a square, we need to square root both sides of the equation. So when we square the right side of the equal sign, we get a t. When we square the left side of the equal sign, we're going to get the square root of 20 over 16, and the square root does go all the way down to the 16, and we have to have a plus minus there. But because we're dealing with time, we only want positive time, so we're going to reject the negative, and we're going to say time equals square root of 20 over 16. Now, your teacher probably wants this simplified, so square root of 20 over 16 is the same thing as the square root of 20 over the square root of 16. I know the square root of 16 is a perfect square, that's 4. I left the square root of 20 alone for a minute. Now, we're going to break up the square root of 20. We're going to simplify it. I know the square root of 20 is equal to the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. The square root of 4 is a perfect square, so this simplifies to 2 square root 5. So we go back to t, and we can now say t equals 2 square root of 5 over 4. Now I look at my numbers that are not underneath a square root sign, which is 2 and 4, and they could be simplified. They both can be divided by 2, so the 2 gets canceled out, or you could say it became a 1. Square root of 5 we leave alone, and then we divide 4 by 2, and we get 2. So our answer is t equals the square root of 5 over 2.